A young apprentice's hands tremble as she carves a rune of warmth, working to guide the vibrant energy within her. You are about to discover the ancient art of rune craft, a gentle magic that can weave dreams and bring deep, lasting peace. What stories lie waiting in the quiet hum of an old workshop shelf? And can one person's quiet dedication truly restore a legacy of comfort and connection? I would love to know where you are listening from and what the local time is there. If you feel like sharing that in the comments. What does the idea of a magic that soothes the world around you bring to mind for you? The low hum pulled at Alara like a gentle tide. It led her to the very back of the workshop, to a shelf thick with dust and shadows. Her fingers brushed against a small, forgotten box made of dark wood, its surface etched with runes so old their edges had softened. A faint, inviting light pulsed from within the seam. With a careful press of a hidden clasp, the lid opened without a sound. Nestled inside on a bed of faded velvet lay a single stone disc. Carved into its surface was an incomplete pattern, a rune of whispers, and it glowed with a warm, patient light that seemed to sync with the quiet rhythm of her own heartbeat. Without thinking, she reached out and let her fingertips graze the cool stone. The rune flared softly, not with a flash, but with a bloom of hazy, beautiful images that filled the air around her. She saw glimpses of past Rune-Masters, their hands moving with calm purpose, weaving spells of comfort and quiet dreams. But the activation also sent out a subtle, unintended ripple of energy, a signal that something unfinished had stirred. From somewhere deep in the enchanted forest, surrounding the workshop, a creature that fed on latent, unbound magic lifted its head, its interest now piqued by this new, flickering source. The vision faded, leaving Alara alone with the softly glowing disc and a difficult choice. Her mentor, Master Kale, was a man of strict rules and caution. He would see this as a step away from her studies, an untrained hand reaching toward forces she did not yet understand. To tell him would mean the rune being locked away, its secrets lost forever. But to keep it hidden was a direct act of disobedience. She believed, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that this rune held the key to a kinder, more gentle form of magic, one that the world had nearly forgotten. Making her decision, she carefully wrapped the stone in a soft cloth and tucked it deep into the pocket of her apron, the weight of it both thrilling and heavy. That night, sleep did not come easily. The rune in its hiding place beneath her pillow seemed to breathe, its whispers growing from a faint sigh to a soft, coherent murmur. As she finally drifted into dreams, the whispers wove a tapestry behind her eyes. She found herself walking in a hidden grove she had never seen, where ancient trees cradled runes that glowed with a serene, untroubled power, their light promising answers and a deep, profound peace. The grove in her dream was bathed in a silver light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Alara walked beneath the boughs of ancient trees, each one cradling a softly glowing rune in its bark, like a sleeping ember. A figure of shimmering light, a spectral rune master from a forgotten age, appeared beside her. Without words, it guided her to a smooth, dark stone where a new symbol was already forming. This was the rune of Stillness, a pattern of interlocking curves that felt like a deep, calming breath made visible. The master guided her hands, not in physical carving, but in tracing the symbol in her mind, impressing its every loop and line upon her memory. She learned that this rune was not about suppressing magic, but about offering it a quiet place to rest, a harbor for restless energy. When she woke with a start just before dawn, the pattern was etched behind her eyes as clearly as if she had carved it in stone. For the first time in weeks, the magical energy within her felt less like a flickering candle in the wind and more like a steady, gentle flame. Then she saw it. Drifting on the still air of her room was a moth, its wings the color of twilight and dusted with what looked like tiny, gleaming stars. A dream moth. A tangible piece of her journey had followed her back, the urge to run to Master Kale and show him the rune she had discovered warred with a cold knot of fear in her stomach. He would ask how she learned it, and the truth of her secret dream walking and the hidden rune box would unravel everything. She made her choice as the first light of dawn touched her window. Pulling a common practice stone from her shelf, she took her stylus and, with a hand that only trembled slightly, began to carve the rune of stillness. Each stroke was an act of concealment, a secret shared only with the quiet morning. If she could master this, she could prevent the small magical accidents that sometimes happened, like the time she had made all the ink pots in the workshop evaporate. But every successful, hidden stroke was another layer to the secret life she was building, a wall growing between her and the mentor she respected. Later, at breakfast, Master Kale stirred his tea and made a casual observation. He mentioned a curious increase in dream moths being seen around the village, his wise, old eyes lingering on Alara for a moment longer than usual before he turned the conversation to the day's intended lessons. The light in the workshop felt different that afternoon, sharp and clear, as Master Kale called his apprentices to gather around his workbench. He held up a smooth, dark slate into which he began carving a complex rune with swift, precise strokes. This, he explained in a voice that was uncharacteristically grave, was a rune of binding, an enchantment used only to secure volatile and unpredictable magics. He warned them of ancient runes, artifacts from a time when the boundaries between dream and waking were less distinct. These old powers, he cautioned, could weave dreams so vivid they began to overwrite reality itself if handled without the proper safeguards. A quiet unease settled in Alara's stomach as she listened. The rune she had hidden away, the rune of whispers that had shown her the grove, was not just a forgotten secret. It was one of these potent artifacts. Her gaze dropped to the floor, but she could feel the weight of Master Kale's attention, his wise eyes lingering on her as if he could see the secret knowledge burning within her. The conflict inside her sharpened into a painful point. To confess now would be to validate all his concerns about untrained hands, and the gentle magic of the dream runes would be sealed away forever as a threat. Yet to stay silent was to disobey the one person guiding her, and to risk the very instability he described. She made her choice in that sunlit room, a quiet, firm resolution. She would find a way to prove the value of this gentle magic, to demonstrate its power to soothe and heal, without breaking the trust Master Kale had placed in her. The stakes of her secret were no longer just about her own learning. They were about preventing the very chaos he feared. Later, while gathering moonlace herbs near the edge of the woods, a flicker of movement caught her eye. The dream moth, Its star-dusted wings, a soft pulse in the twilight air, drifted past her. Instead of vanishing into the trees, it hesitated, then fluttered purposefully toward the village square, as if urging her to follow. It led her away from the quiet workshop, toward the old stone building that housed the village archives. The old archive door groaned on its hinges, letting out a breath of dust and forgotten stories. Inside, the air was thick and still, the silence broken only by the soft flutter of the starry moth as it danced ahead of Alara, a tiny lantern in the gloom. It led her past towering shelves of scrolls to a small, shadowed alcove, alighting upon a single wooden tube that seemed to call out to her. Her fingers trembled as she unrolled the brittle parchment within. The ink was faded, but the words were a revelation. They spoke of the dream weavers, Rune-Masters who did not command magic, but conversed with it through the language of sleep. They used gentle runes to ease troubled minds, to mend inner hurts, and to guide learning in a state of deep rest. Their era ended not in conflict, but in a great magical silence, a quiet fading that left their gentle art almost entirely lost. Her heart beat faster as she read about the Rune of Whispers. It was never meant to be used alone. It was a teaching rune, one half of a pair, designed to create a shared space of learning and comfort. Its power was fading from the world, not because it was dangerous, but because it was lonely, its call unanswered by a partner's rune for generations. This changed everything. The choice before her was no longer simply about hiding a secret. It was about letting a gentle form of magic vanish forever out of caution, or taking a deliberate step to restore it. She could not complete the Rune of Whispers by herself. She needed a partner, someone with a calm heart and a quiet mind, someone who could share the burden and the beauty of this rediscovery. Her thoughts went immediately to Finn. He was a storyteller, his voice a steady anchor for the village children, his hands always busy with the patient work of mending nets and carving toys. If anyone could understand the rhythm of a gentle magic, it would be him. Finding him would spread the rune's influence, potentially creating a more stable and safe connection. But it would also mean trusting another person with a secret that could shatter her standing with Master Kale. One misplaced word, one moment of doubt, and the delicate balance she was trying to build could collapse. She found Finn exactly where she had hoped, sitting on the sun-warmed bank of the creek, his hands moving with a steady, practiced rhythm as he worked a needle through a torn fishing net. The soft sound of the water and the low, soothing murmur of his voice as he practiced a story filled the air with a profound sense of peace. The creek's gentle murmur seemed to quiet in anticipation as Alara approached Finn. She drew the small, wrapped bundle from her pocket and unfolded the cloth, revealing the softly glowing Rune of Whispers. His eyes widened, not with fear, but with a quiet wonder that gave her the courage to speak. She explained the lonely rune, its need for a partner, and the gentle art of the dream weavers that was fading from the world. Her voice was barely more than a whisper itself as she asked for his help, not as a wielder of power, but as a keeper of stories, to complete the ancient pair with a rune of listening. Finn's gaze shifted from the stone to her face, seeing the hope and the fear warring within her. He did not answer immediately, his thoughts a quiet tide she could not read. He finally spoke, his voice steady. His stories were his only magic, he said, a simple thing of comfort for children. Could such a quiet thing truly be enough to bind an ancient power? And more importantly, could it keep them safe from whatever watched from the deep woods? Ilara's heart ached with a sudden, protective feeling. She was asking him to step into a world he had never chosen, all for a magic she herself did not fully understand. But he saw the sincerity in her plea, the profound belief that this was a path toward healing, not harm. He agreed on one condition: they would practice only in the most secluded places, and the moment anything felt strange or wrong, they would stop. Their partnership was a delicate balance, a vow spoken not with grand ceremony, but with a shared, determined look. That afternoon, hidden in a sun-dappled clearing far from the workshop, they began. Ilara presented a new, blank stone, her carving stylus poised. Finn sat across from her, closed his eyes for a moment to find the stillness within, and then began to speak. His story was not one of epic battles, but of starlit seas and gentle tides, a tale of deep, abiding peace. As his calm, rhythmic words filled the air, Ilara's hands moved. She carved the complementary curves of the rune of listening, and with each stroke, the stone did not just accept the mark, it glowed with a soft, steady light, weaving the very essence of his narrative into its core. The two runes, the whispers and the listening, began to hum in harmony, their combined energy creating a sphere of profound calm that made the very sunlight seem softer, the birdsong sweeter. The power was beautiful, but it was also a connection. Ilara could feel it, a fragile thread now linking her well-being to Finn's, and his to the rune's stability. A misstep would no longer be just her failure, it would be their shared challenge. That night, with the completed rune of listening resting beside its partner on her windowsill, a soft, continuous hum emanated from them, a sound so deeply soothing it seemed to settle the very air in her room, promising restful dreams and a peace she had not known in a long time. That night, they placed the two runes side by side on a low wooden stool between their sleeping pallets. As the final light of dusk faded, the stones began to pulse in a slow, synchronized rhythm, their combined hum sinking into the very air of the room. Sleep did not creep in, it simply arrived, a gentle tide that pulled them under together. They found themselves standing not in the hidden grove, but at the entrance to a vast, circular library. Its walls were not of wood or stone, but of woven, softly glowing roots that cradled countless runes, each one pulsing with a different, gentle light. The air smelled of old parchment and rain-washed leaves. Here, the knowledge of the dream weavers was not read, but felt, a rune of gentle winds, its form like a spiraling leaf, drifted toward them. As they focused on it, they did not learn its theory, they experienced its purpose. A soft, refreshing breeze moved through the dream library, not stirring a single speck of dust, but carrying away a faint, restless energy they had not even noticed was clinging to them. It was a rune for clearing the air, for soothing agitation before it could take root. When they woke with the dawn, the feeling of that cleansing breeze seemed to linger in the room. Ilara felt a depth of rest she had forgotten was possible. Finn sat up, his eyes clear and bright, and he recited the entire form and function of the rune of gentle winds, without a single moment of hesitation. The usual slight tremor in his hands was gone, replaced by a calm stillness. A thrill of success warred with a chill of caution in Ilara's chest. This was more powerful, more intimate than she had anticipated. Their minds had touched in that shared space. What if they could not untangle themselves? What if the dream began to need the rune to feel real? Finn, however, was radiant, already asking when they could go back, eager to discover what other comforts the library held. Lila saw the wonder in his eyes, but she also saw the risk. They made a pact then, a necessary boundary in their uncharted journey. Shared dreaming would be limited to once a week, and they would keep a secret journal, sketching every rune they encountered and recording its felt purpose. This control was their safeguard, a way to learn without being consumed. Their small, controlled success was a beacon, proving the cozy magic could be revived. Yet each foray would weave their own energies more deeply into the fabric of the dream world, creating a connection that might be difficult or even impossible to release. The next morning, the village seemed to bask in an unusual quiet. A neighbor remarked to Alara that she had slept through the night for the first time in seasons, and others echoed the sentiment, talking of peaceful dreams and waking feeling lighter. As Alara went to draw water from her garden well, she noticed a flash of russet fur. A fox sat calmly at the edge of the herb patch, watching her with intelligent, amber eyes. Its coat was unusually marked with subtle, silvery lines that swirled in patterns hauntingly familiar to the runes she now knew. It did not startle or flee, but simply observed, as if waiting to see what she would do next. The fox took a slow, deliberate step forward, its amber eyes holding Alara's gaze without a trace of fear. As it moved into a patch of morning sun, she saw them clearly, faint, silvery patterns swirled within its russet fur, lines that echoed the graceful curves of the runes she had been studying. When she let out a soft, startled breath, the markings on its shoulder shimmered with a gentle, answering light. This was no ordinary creature. The knowledge settled in her mind with a quiet certainty. It was a dream guardian, a being woven from the very essence of the stabilized, cozy magic she and Finn were practicing. It had not come by chance, but had been drawn here, a living testament to the peace their runes were spreading. With a flick of its bushy tail, it turned and trotted toward the forest edge, pausing to look back at her, an unspoken invitation in its calm demeanor. She followed, her heart beating a rhythm of excitement and caution, into a part of the woods she had never explored. It led her to a small, hidden meadow, cradled between ancient roots, a place where the air itself seemed to hum. Here, wildflowers bloomed with petals shaped like runic symbols, each one glowing with a soft, internal light. This was a sanctuary, a place where dream magic had taken root in the waking world. The choice was immediate and heavy. Bringing the fox to Master Kale would be the honest path, but it would unravel all her secrets and likely see this gentle creature confined as a subject for study. To keep it hidden was a risk, a decision to walk a path alone without the guidance that might keep her safe from whatever watched from the shadows. She chose secrecy. For the next several days, she visited the meadow whenever she could slip away, her sketchbook open on her lap. She drew the intricate patterns on the fox's fur, noting how its mere presence seemed to still the rustling leaves and make the sunlight feel warmer. When she practiced her carving nearby, her focus was sharper, her hand steadier, as if the creature's calm was a tangible force amplifying her own. This was proof that her magic was nurturing the world around her, a beautiful and humbling discovery. Yet that very success carried a new concern. If her actions could call forth such a being, what else might they attract? Those who feared the unknown, or others who might seek to use such a creature for their own ends, could be drawn to this quiet place. Kneeling in the meadow one afternoon, her pencil moving swiftly across the page to capture the elegant arc of a rune on the fox's flank, the sound of voices carried on the breeze from the path beyond the thicket. She froze, recognizing the measured tone of Master Kale and the deeper, older voice of the village elder. They were speaking in low, concerned murmurs. The elder mentioned unusual patterns of animal behavior and a deeper, more restful sleep settling over the entire village. Kale's reply was grim and clear. He spoke of old magics returning, not with a roar, but with a whisper, and that such quiet returns often demanded the greatest vigilance. Elder Maeve's voice was a low murmur of concern in the workshop, her presence as steady and imposing as the ancient oak outside. She spoke of the village's newfound quiet, the deep and pervasive calm that had settled over every home. But where others saw a blessing, she saw a warning. Such profound peace, she cautioned Master Kale, often masked a gathering energy, a tide of magic that could break unpredictably if its source remained unknown and unchecked. Kale's agreement was swift and solemn. He would deepen his monitoring of all magical currents, his attention turning inward to the workshop and its apprentices. For Alara, standing silently in the corner, the air suddenly felt thin. Her secret work was no longer just a personal risk. It was a spark in a room filling with watchful eyes. The moment she had dreaded was closing in. She watched the two elders speak, their faces etched with a caution born from hard experience, and she wrestled with a silent plea. Should she step forward now, trust Maeve with the truth of the dream runes and the gentle guardian in the woods, or would that only confirm their fears and see the magic locked away forever? The decision crystallized within her. She would not confess. She would prove the runes' worth, not with words, but with a tangible, undeniable demonstration of their harmony. Her plan was bold, a step far beyond their quiet practice. She would create a dream circle, a configuration of multiple gentle runes working in concert, to show that this magic did not gather like a storm, but wove itself into the world like a sturdy, comforting blanket. Success would mean village-wide peace, a lasting testament to the Dreamweaver's lost art. A misstep, however, carried a serious cost. A misaligned circle could cause a ripple of distorted dreams or a sudden void of magic that would shake the village's fragile trust and validate every one of Kale's warnings. Later that day, she and Finn retreated to the hidden meadow, the only place that felt safe from prying eyes. The dream fox was waiting for them, curled in a patch of clover, its silvery markings pulsing softly. It watched as they laid out their small collection of carved stones, the rune of whispers, the rune of listening, and the newly carved rune of gentle winds. They spoke in hushed, urgent tones, sketching diagrams in the soft earth, planning how to interlock the rune's energies without letting them overwhelm one another. The fox observed it all, its calm, amber eyes holding a deep, ancient knowing, as if it understood the weight of the circle they were about to build and the delicate balance they had to maintain. The sketches from her dreams and the patterns on the fox fur covered the floor of the small clearing, a map to a new kind of magic. Ilara's plan was to weave them all together, the runes of whispers, stillness, listening, and gentle winds, into a single circle carved around a smooth, flat hearthstone at the meadow's center. Finn gathered the materials, his hands careful and sure as he selected stones of the right size and shape from the creek bed, his quiet presence a steady anchor to her racing thoughts. Their first attempts were clumsy, the energies of the runes pushing against each other like unfamiliar dancers. But as they slowly aligned the carvings, a subtle shift occurred. The wildflowers around the meadow's edge began to glow with a soft, internal light, and the air filled with a gentle, sleepy fragrance, like lavender and warm honey. It was working, but the balance was incredibly delicate. Without a master's guidance, every adjustment felt like a guess. A sudden, sharp gust of wind, as if the forest itself was testing them, rushed through the clearing, threatening to scatter their stones and shatter the fragile harmony they had built. Lilara's hand shot out, her fingers pressing against the freshly carved rune of gentle winds. She poured her focus into it, not to command the air, but to ask it to rest. The wind softened instantly, settling into a calm, warm breeze that rustled the leaves with a sound like a quiet sigh. The circle held, but a wave of deep exhaustion washed over her, leaving her lightheaded and her hands trembling. Each successful test brought the dream circle closer to reality, a beacon of cozy magic that could soothe the entire village. Yet with every use of the runes, the physical cost to Lilara grew, a slow drain that she tried to hide from Finn's worried gaze. The circle's power was also becoming a brighter signal, its soft glow and calming influence growing harder to contain within the secrecy of the meadow. As dusk fell, the completed circle pulsed with a steady, gentle light, the runes humming in a low, harmonious chord. Lilara sat within its ring, feeling a profound connection, not just to Finn and the watching fox, but to the sleeping world around her. She could sense the village resting, could feel the quiet dreams rising like mist, and she knew their secret was woven into the peace of every home. A soft rustle in the meadow's ferns broke the quiet hum of the runes. A small child, her nightgown dusted with pollen, wandered into the clearing with the dazed, sleepy steps of a dream walker. Her name was Lila, and she was drawn not by curiosity, but by the profound sense of peace radiating from the circle of stones. Without a word of fear or hesitation, she walked directly to the central hearthstone, curled up on its warm surface, and fell into a deep, natural slumber in the space of a single breath. Lilara and Finn watched, frozen, as the runes around the child pulsed with a brighter, warmer light, their harmonious hum deepening as they cradled her in a visible, tangible serenity. The magic was working, and it was more beautiful than they had ever imagined. But their secret project now had a witness, a small, sleeping girl whose parents would soon be searching for her. The choice was immediate and filled with tension. To wake her abruptly might break the rune's gentle hold and frighten her, but to let her sleep risked causing concern in the village and revealing their work in the worst possible way. They shared a long, silent look, a conversation held entirely in the worry in Finn's eyes and the resolve in Ilara's. They would not disturb this perfect peace. They settled on the soft grass beside the circle, their backs to the central stone, acting as quiet guardians. While Finn kept watch on the forest path, Lilara carefully reinforced the runes of protection and stillness, weaving an additional layer of safety around the sleeping child. Each gentle stroke of her stylus was an act of faith, a belief that this magic was meant for moments exactly like this. The stakes of their secret had just multiplied. Lila's safe, enchanted nap was living proof of the circle's profound benefit, a demonstration no lecture could ever equal. Yet her presence here meant their secret was no longer entirely their own. It was now intertwined with the trust of a family and the perception of an entire village. As the first stars appeared, Lila stirred. She woke not with a cry, but with a soft, contented sigh, her eyes clear and bright. She looked at Alara and Finn not with confusion, but with a quiet recognition, as if she had known they would be there. She spoke of dreams where the sky sang lullabies and friendly, starry foxes showed her hidden paths. Her innocent, joyful account was a powerful testament, and when she skipped back toward the village, she carried the story with her. By the next morning, the tale of Lila's magical nap had spread, weaving a new thread of wonder and possibility into the fabric of village life. The meadow path, once a secret trail, was now worn with the footprints of curious neighbors. They came with quiet questions and small offerings, placing fragrant herbs and softly woven blankets around the glowing dream circle, building a nest of comfort with their own hands. Alara and Finn found themselves not as hidden practitioners, but as gentle guides, showing visitors how to simply sit within the circle's influence and breathe. Each grateful smile was a balm to Alara's spirit, a confirmation that their magic was truly helping. Yet every new face also felt like a spotlight, making the secret she kept from Master Kale a heavy, unsustainable weight. Pride in her community warred with a deep, gnawing anxiety. She could not wait for him to discover their work by accident, a confrontation born of secrecy and fear. She had to invite him, to show him the harmony they had built and hope he could see its value. The decision settled in her heart, a necessary risk. She penned a short, nervous note, inviting her mentor to witness the dream circle at its next activation. Approval would mean their work could grow in the open, a protected part of the village's life. Disapproval, however, could disturb the delicate sanctuary and the profound peace it offered everyone. With the invitation sent, she and Finn turned to the meadow, carefully cleansing and reinforcing every rune, preparing not for a demonstration of power, but an offering of profound quiet. Twilight softened the edges of the meadow as Master Kale arrived, his presence as quiet as the falling dusk. He did not speak, but stood at the clearing's edge, his sharp eyes taking in the scene. Villagers sat in peaceful silence within the ring of softly glowing stones, their breathing deep and even, their faces smooth with the gentle touch of dream magic. Kale stepped into the circle, his hands held palm down over the central hearthstone. He closed his eyes, his brow furrowed in concentration, testing the weave of energies with his refined senses, feeling for any subtle imbalance or unstable current. Ilara held her breath, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. The silence stretched, filled only by the low, harmonious hum of the runes. Then, without a word, Kale drew a fine stylus from his robe. He knelt, and with a touch as light as a breath, began to carve a new symbol around the existing runes. It was a pattern of interlocking spirals, a rune of harmony, its purpose not to command, but to gently align all the magics present, weaving their individual threads into a single, unbreakable cord of peace. The circle's light brightened, its hum deepening into a resonance that felt like the world itself settling into a contented sigh. He had not dismantled her work. He had strengthened it, yet Alara felt a thread of uncertainty, Was this a blessing, a true acceptance of her path, or a master's way of placing a gentle, invisible fence around a power he still deemed unpredictable? She looked from the newly carved rune to his unreadable face, and made a choice rooted in the very peace the circle offered. She stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. "Thank you, Master. Will you teach me the old ways, the full path of the dream weavers?" Kale regarded her for a long moment, his expression a mixture of stern caution and something deeper, a flicker of what might have been relief. He gave a slow nod. "We begin tomorrow," he said, "and we begin with understanding why this magic was set aside and the legacy of the great quiet that followed." His agreement was a monumental victory, lending their project an authority it had lacked. But with his guidance came his constraints. Her independent exploration was over, replaced by the structured lessons and careful protocols of a master. Their cozy magic was now sanctioned, its future secure, but its growth would now be shaped by the very hand that had once warned against its challenges. The morning light in Master Kale's workshop felt different, falling in thick, dusty shafts across a table piled with ancient texts. He opened a heavy, leather-bound volume, its pages whispering with the weight of forgotten choices. He spoke of a time when dream magic was not a cozy secret, but a dominant force, a power so intimate it could reshape memory and belief with the subtlety of a night's rest. The old masters grew wary. They feared that such profound influence, left unchecked, could erode the very foundations of a shared reality, so they made a collective, solemn decision. They did not destroy the knowledge, but they set it aside, allowing the practice to fade into a great magical quiet, a silence that dulled the world's connection to gentle enchantments for generations. Lila listened, her fingers tracing the faded illustrations of dream runes. This was not a story of evil or good, but one of caution, a choice made from a deep sense of responsibility that had, over time, become a cage. Her rediscovery was not an accident, but a turning of the wheel, a chance to restore what was lost with the wisdom of what had been learned. The weight of that legacy settled on her shoulders, a sobering mix of purpose and fear. Could her enthusiasm, her desire to share this beautiful magic, inadvertently lead her to repeat the past by moving too quickly, by trusting too widely? She knew then that she could not be the sole keeper of this power. The cozy magic had to belong to the community it served. Later that day, she stood before Master Kale and Elder Maeve, her proposal clear and her voice steady. She asked for the formation of a village council to oversee the Dream Circle, a group of trusted voices to guide its use, ensure its safety, and guarantee its benefits were shared by everyone. It was a decision to share control, to weave the magic into the social fabric of the village itself. Master Kale's slow nod was one of deep approval, a recognition that she had learned the history's most vital lesson. The council formed quickly, a mix of elders, healers, and practical minds like Finn. Their first task was a joyous one, a Starlight Gathering to formally introduce the Dream Circle to the entire village. This celebration was meant to demystify the magic, to replace fear with shared experience. Yet as plans were discussed, Lila felt a new kind of tension. Diverse opinions emerged about everything, from the timing of the event to who should speak. Involving the community was the right path, but it also meant her singular vision would now be shaped, and sometimes challenged, by the collective will. The cozy magic was safe, but its future was no longer hers alone to direct. The meadow transformed under their careful hands, becoming a sanctuary woven from community effort. Volunteers arranged soft cushions and woven blankets in concentric rings around the central hearthstone, while Finn and others hung lanterns that held not fire, but gentle, captured starlight runes. Master Kale walked the perimeter with Alara, guiding the placement of new rune stones to expand the circle's influence without straining its core. They practiced the activation sequence until the runes hummed in a seamless, layered harmony, their combined energy creating a dome of palpable tranquility under the open sky. Yet Alara's satisfaction was edged with a quiet concern. What if so many hopeful minds, all opening themselves to the magic at once, created a resonance too powerful to guide, or acted as a signal for whatever watched from the wilds beyond their understanding? This reflection led to her most important contribution. Drawing from the old texts and her own intuition, she carved a new rune, one of open gates and safe passage. She placed this rune of welcome at the meadow's entrance, its purpose to gently sense the spirit of those who entered, ensuring only peaceful hearts could add their energy to the circle. This subtle boundary was their primary safeguard. A beautiful, harmonious evening would weave the dream circle into the very identity of the village, a shared treasure for generations. A single moment of unease, however, could weaken that trust and echo every cautionary story Master Kale had ever shared. As the sun dipped below the trees on the evening of the gathering, the first villagers began to arrive. They walked up the path in small family groups, their voices hushed, their faces softened by hope and the twilight. The air itself began to shimmer, charged with a gentle magic that seemed to welcome each person by name, promising a peace that the world had long forgotten. The first star appeared as a silver pinprick in the deepening twilight. Alara took a steadying breath and placed her hands on the central hearthstone, feeling the cool surface hum with latent energy. One by one, she traced the activation sequence, and the runes bloomed to life in a soft, cascading glow. A gentle, audible harmony rose from the circle, a chord that seemed to resonate not in the air, but directly within the soul. It was a sound that invited whispered stories between old friends, that held space for quiet reflection, and that gently ushered the weary and the children into a deep, natural slumber right there on the soft blankets. The entire village, wrapped in this shared serenity, breathed as one community, their individual worries softening into a collective peace. Even the most skeptical elder, who had come only to observe, felt the stubborn tension in his shoulders finally ease, his guarded expression melting into one of quiet wonder. For a long, beautiful moment, the magic was perfect. Then a flicker, like a ripple across still water. The harmonious hum wavered, and for a single heartbeat, vivid dream images of soaring mountains and vast, starry oceans flashed visibly in the air above the circle, a surge of raw energy that threatened to unravel the delicate weave. Alara's heart leapt, but her hands remained steady. She did not fight the surge. Instead, she gently guided the wild energy, channeling it like a wayward stream into the deep, calm reservoir of the Rune of Stillness. The flickering images dissolved back into the gentle hum, the circle settling so smoothly that most never noticed the disturbance. Across the circle, Finn, sensing the shift, did not miss a beat. He raised his voice in a familiar, comforting tale of a sleepy badger and his moonlit den, his steady narrative a second anchor that kept any budding concern from taking root in the crowd. The gathering was a profound success, a living testament to the Dream Circle's power to unite and heal an entire community. Yet that brief surge was a quiet message, a hint that the cozy magic they had revived was connected to currents far deeper and more powerful than they had yet explored. After the last villager had departed, carrying the evening's peace with them like a cherished gift, Master Kale gestured for Alara to walk with him. The dream fox padded silently beside them as they stopped at the edge of the meadow. "I once held a vision much like yours," he said, his voice low and thoughtful. "In my youth, I discovered fragments of the Dreamweaver texts and believed I could restore them. But the magic requires a balance I could not find alone. It needs both the anchor and the sail, the steady hand and the open heart. I lacked a partner like your Finn." His confession was not one of regret, but of profound understanding. "The path you are walking is the one I saw from a distance. Its challenges will be great, for the magic you are awakening remembers a time when it shaped worlds." The silence between them was filled with the lingering hum of the meadow. Kale's gaze was distant, fixed on a memory. "My partner was a storyteller," he said. Her voice could calm a storm. "We worked for a year, piecing together the old patterns from fragments, much like you did. But her heart was called elsewhere, to distant shores and stories not yet told. She left, and the magic, it became an echo in an empty room. I could not hold it alone. The solitude was not just mine, it was woven into the runes themselves, and I feared what such a solitary power might become. So I set it all aside." His confession settled around Alara, not as a warning, but as a key turning in a long locked door. Her success was not just her own, it was a testament to the partnership he had lost. Kale's stern guidance was not meant to cage her, but to ensure the anchor she had in Finn remained strong. The pressure was immense, a legacy of quiet heartbreak, now resting on her shoulders alongside the hope for a restored art. She felt the delicate, invisible threads connecting her to Finn, understanding they were not a limitation, but the very foundation that kept the cozy magic from fading into silence. "I will not let it be lost again," she promised, her voice fierce with a new sense of duty. "We will write it all down, every rune, every step, every feeling. It will be a guide, so that no one who comes after will have to walk this path alone." That night, by the soft light of a single candle, she opened a new, blank journal. She dipped her quill, and on the first page, wrote the title that felt both like a promise and a destiny: Lore of the Rune-Masters. Finn sat beside her, his own hands busy not with a net, but with a fine stylus and a sheet of parchment. As she carefully described the curve of the rune of Stillness, he brought it to life in ink, his illustrations capturing not just its shape, but the gentle sense of peace it emanated. Their collaboration was now a mission, a deliberate act of preservation. Each page they filled was a safeguard against the Great Quiet, a way to ensure that even if their own path faltered, the knowledge of cozy magic would remain, waiting patiently for the next open heart and willing hand. The scratch of Alara's quill was a steady counterpoint to the soft crackle of the hearth. Page after page, she and Finn filled the blank journal, their shared project becoming a tangible bridge between past and future. They described the rune of Stillness not as a command, but as an invitation for restless energy to settle. They illustrated the rune of listening as a vessel for calm narratives, and detailed how the gentle winds could clear a room of lingering tension. Each entry was a careful map of cozy magic, charting the carving techniques, the soft words for activation, and the specific applications for soothing sleep and quiet minds. The book itself, bound in supple leather the color of the forest floor, began to feel like more than paper and ink. It felt like a living, breathing thing, its very presence in the workshop seeming to calm the air, making Ilara's own connection to the runes feel more grounded and stable than ever before. Yet one chapter remained unwritten, its potential weight heavy in the quiet room. Finn believed they should focus only on the beauty and the benefits, fearing that tales of the Great Silence would scare away new learners. Ilara, however, felt the memory of Master Kale's lost partnership in every silent corner. To omit the risks, she argued, would be to build a house without a foundation. It would be an incomplete legacy, one that could lead others to the same solitude that had forced the magic into hiding. Their discussion was a gentle but firm tension, a reflection of their different natures. In the end, they found a middle path. They would include a final chapter on responsible practice, framing the challenges not as dangers, but as necessary considerations for a sustainable art. They wrote of the importance of a trusted partner, of setting clear boundaries for shared dreaming, and of listening to the subtle cost the magic could sometimes ask. This chapter became a quiet tribute to their own journey, a guidepost for anyone who might follow. With the final word inscribed, a profound quiet settled over them. They had created a cornerstone, a first draft of a revived tradition, but they also knew that such concentrated knowledge was a powerful beacon. In the wrong hands, a guide to influencing dreams and emotions could be turned into something far from its gentle purpose. The book was both a gift and a vulnerability, its existence now a part of the balance they had to maintain. As they sat in the comfortable silence of their completed work, a soft knock came at the workshop door. Master Kale entered, and with him was a stranger, a woman with keen, curious eyes and a traveler's cloak, dusted with the fine pollen of distant roads. She had heard whispers, she said, of a village blessed with profound peace, and of two young Rune-Masters who had rediscovered an art long thought silent. The stranger introduced herself as Lila, a scholar of forgotten magics, whose journey had been guided by whispers of a village wrapped in an impossible peace. She moved through the dream circle with a quiet reverence, her keen eyes absorbing every detail, from the arrangement of the stones to the serene faces of the sleeping villagers. When Ilara showed her the newly bound book, Lyra spent a long while in silence, turning each page with careful fingers. "Your work is a gift," she finally said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "You have captured the heart of this magic with a clarity I have rarely seen." She opened her own weathered satchel, pulling out scrolls filled with symbols from distant lands. One rune in particular, she explained, a pattern used by healers in the northern valleys, might harmonize beautifully with their own. It was called the Rune of Memory Comfort, a gentle spiral that could help soothe restless dreams born of old worries, offering the mind a soft place to rest. Ilara watched as Finn's eyes lit up with excitement, his hand already twitching as if to carve the new shape. She felt the same eager pull, the desire to make their cozy magic even more complete. Yet a protective instinct tightened in her chest. This was their sanctuary, born from their soil and their shared experiences. Could bringing in outside wisdom change the very nature of what they had built, shifting it from a homegrown practice into something more academic and less personal? The choice was a delicate one. She would not close the door to learning, but she would anchor it firmly in their community. Ilara invited Lyra to stay and teach a temporary workshop on the new rune and its principles, a gesture of openness and shared discovery. But she was clear in her condition. The core of their practice, the dream circle itself, would remain a community-led tradition, rooted forever in the soil of their meadow. Lyra agreed with a respectful nod, understanding the boundary. The workshop was a beautiful success, filling the old archive with villagers eager to learn. They carved the rune of memory comfort onto small, personal stones, and its effect was immediate and profound, helping to soften the edges of difficult memories for several elders. Integrating it into the main circle felt like adding a final, essential piece to a grand puzzle. Yet as the new rune settled into the meadow's harmony, Ilara felt a subtle shift. The magic was richer, more nuanced, capable of responding to a wider range of heartaches, but it was also less exclusively theirs. The pure, simple tradition they had nurtured was now intertwined with a stranger's knowledge, its future growth forever changed by an influence from beyond their woods. The peace of the dream circle was a deep and steady river, but even the calmest waters can be stirred by a single, sharp stone. It began not with a sound, but with a sudden, cold ripple through the rune's warm hum. A child's nightmare, raw and vivid, had pierced the collective serenity, its frantic energy jolting several sleepers awake and leaving the circle's harmony frayed at the edges. Ilara and Finn found young Liam tangled in his blanket, his small body trembling with the aftershocks of a dream where the ground fell away beneath him. The circle's general comfort was not enough. It could offer a soft blanket, but it could not find the specific splinter of fear lodged in his heart. Finn immediately began to speak, his voice a low, steady anchor, weaving a tale of a little badger safe in its deep, earthen den. At the same time, Ilara pressed a small, smooth stone, carved with the rune of memory comfort, into the boy's hand, guiding its energy not to erase the bad dream, but to gently soften its sharp edges, to remind his mind of safety and solid ground. Slowly, his breathing deepened, the terror in his eyes receding like a tide. The circle's hum steadied, the disturbance smoothed over, but the lesson was stark and clear. Some sorrows are too personal for a shared sanctuary to heal alone. The cozy magic needed to be more intimate. That night, Ilara sat with a pile of blank stones, her stylus moving by lamplight. She began creating personal rune stones, each one a tiny, focused anchor of peace. For the baker who worried through the night, she carved a rune of stillness. For an elder who dreamed of those no longer present, she prepared another memory comfort stone. These were not replacements for the circle, but companions for it, tailored echoes of its power that could be held in a trembling hand during the deepest, darkest hours. The responsibility was immense. Each small stone was a new thread of magic she had to maintain, a promise of comfort that she alone was responsible for keeping. She soon realized she could not carry this weight indefinitely, and so she began to share the craft itself. In the warm light of the workshop, she gathered a small group of villagers with calm hands and quieter hearts. showing them how to carve the simplest runes and how to imbue them with gentle intention. It was no longer about one rune master safeguarding the village's peace, but about a community learning to weave its own tapestry of comfort, one small, careful stone at a time. The meadow became a classroom under the open sky each week, its soft grass dotted with villagers holding blank stones and carving tools. Lila moved among them, her voice a calm guide, as she demonstrated the simple, flowing lines of a rune of warmth. She explained how the intent behind the carving was as important as the shape itself, a gentle focus on the feeling of sunlight on skin or the comfort of a hearth fire. Across the circle, Finn wove his stories, his narratives of quiet courage and steadfast friendship, giving emotional weight to the symbols, helping each carver connect their own memories of comfort to the magic taking form in their hands. One woman, carving a rune for her son who feared the dark, found herself recalling the soft glow of a nightlight, and her rune pulsed with a particularly steady, gentle light. This was the true goal, not just creating tools, but fostering a shared language of solace that the community could wield for itself. Inevitably, a few found the focus difficult. A young man, frustrated by his clumsy strokes, accidentally channeled his annoyance into his rune, causing it to emit a sharp, hot flicker that startled everyone nearby. Another woman, feeling the weight of a memory she had hoped to soothe, found her rune growing cool and quiet, its energy fading away. These small moments required Lila's immediate and gentle touch, a quick realignment of the energy before it could disrupt the group's harmony. She saw that individual struggle, when left unguided, could become a ripple of unease for everyone. Her solution was both practical and deeply communal. She instituted a simple buddy system, pairing each newcomer with someone who had already found their balance. An elder who had mastered the rune of Stillness now sat beside the frustrated young man, her quiet presence a steadying influence as much as her technical advice. A healer who used runes to ease her own rest worked with a woman carrying a heavy heart, sharing not just technique, but a sense of shared experience. This web of mutual support did more than prevent accidents. It wove the practice of cozy magic directly into the social fabric of the village. Neighbors who had previously only exchanged pleasant greetings now shared quiet moments of focused creation and vulnerability. The magical stability of the entire village grew, the collective hum of hundreds of small, well-tended runes, creating a profound and lasting ambience of peace that hung in the air like a perpetual, gentle dawn. Yet this very success raised the stakes considerably. While individual errors were now easily caught, a widespread misunderstanding or a collective moment of uncertainty could, in theory, resonate through every rune at once, leading not to a single flicker, but a wave of shared discomfort that might shake the community's hard-won trust. The cozy magic was now a shared responsibility, its benefits and its risks distributed among them all. Word of this remarkable village, where peace was not a hope but a practiced art, began to travel along trade routes and with wandering storytellers. Visitors started to arrive, not with the loud demands of tourists, but with a quiet reverence, drawn by the stories of a place where one could simply sit and feel their inner turmoil soften. They came seeking rest and renewal, and the village, having learned the power of sharing its gentle craft, was ready to welcome them. The entire village glowed with a soft, celebratory light, lanterns strung between trees, mirroring the gentle pulse of the dream circle at the meadow's heart. For the first Rune-Master festival, every home had carved a small, personal rune of gratitude, and their combined energy filled the air with a tangible warmth. At the center of it all stood Alara, her hands gently guided by the villagers to accept a circlet of woven moonlace and silverwood, a quiet symbol of her role as the leading rune master of this new age. Cheers and happy tears surrounded her, a wave of love and expectation that made her own smile feel fragile. The honor was immense, a dream realized, but it settled on her shoulders with the weight of a mountain. How could she possibly be the sole guardian of this fragile piece for years to come? Her voice, when she found it, was soft but carried clearly over the joyful crowd. "This magic was never mine alone," she said, her gaze finding Master Kale, whose eyes held a deep, quiet pride. It was Kale who preserved the knowledge when the world forgot. It was Finn whose stories gave it a voice. She turned to the faces of the neighbors who now carved their own runes, the elders who tended the circle, the parents who sang their children to sleep with its gentle hum. And it is all of you who give it a home. The true strength of our craft is not in one master, but in every pair of hands that chooses to weave comfort. Her decision to share the credit was not just humility, it was a strategic foundation for the future, ensuring the legacy would not buckle under the weight of a single person. As the last lanterns were dimmed, and the families drifted home, carrying the festival's deep peace with them, Alara and Finn remained, sitting on the soft grass beside the humming stones. The success of the festival had set a beautiful, daunting precedent. The cozy magic was now an official, celebrated part of their culture, its future expected and assured. But how do you keep a gentle flame growing without fanning it into a wildfire? Finn mused, his voice quiet in the starlight. They spoke of the need for new runes to address new kinds of worries, of perhaps one day guiding other villages, and of the constant, careful balance between innovation and preserving the simple, heartfelt roots from which it all began. The circle's soft light illuminated their thoughtful faces, a quiet promise of many more conversations to come. The first cabin frame stood stark and hopeful against the sky, a simple skeleton of promise. Alara and Finn had spent the quiet season sketching their grandest vision yet, a Rune-Masters retreat where anyone from any village could come to learn the gentle art of dream weaving. They secured a peaceful woodland area bordering their own meadow, a place where the rustle of leaves and the soft hum of the earth would be the first lessons. The challenge was immediate and profound: how to build a place of learning without losing the intimate, personal scale that made the magic so powerful in the first place. Their decision was a reflection of their entire journey. They would build slowly, with deep intention. Each cozy cabin would be crafted from local timber and stone, its design guided by the principles of rune harmony, with windows placed to catch the morning light and eaves carved to encourage the flow of peaceful energy. This was not about constructing a school, but about growing a sanctuary, one that would teach simply by existing within its embrace. The stakes of this expansion were immense. A successful retreat could see their gentle rune lore across the land, offering a new form of peace to countless people. Yet rapid, unchecked growth could dilute their core principles, turning a sacred practice into a mere curriculum and straining the very partnerships that made it all possible. As the sun dipped low on the day, the first cabin frame was raised. Ilara climbed a short ladder, a smooth river stone in her hand. With Finn and Master Kale watching from below, she carefully carved a new symbol into the central beam, a rune of foundation. Its purpose was not to bind the wood, but to bless the intention of the space, to root the retreat in the same soil of community and care that had nurtured the dream circle. The rune glowed with a soft, steady light, a quiet heartbeat for the new beginning, a promise that every step forward would be taken with the same reverence as the very first. The first guests arrived with the quiet rustle of autumn leaves, each carrying an invisible weight. There was a traveler whose eyes held the dust of long roads, an artisan whose hands trembled from too many sleepless nights, and a scholar whose mind was a restless library of unanswered questions. They came not for a lesson, but for a quiet kind of healing. That first evening, as Finn's voice wove a story of a starlit forest, Ilara guided the group in activating a small, personal dream circle. The traveler sighed as if setting down a heavy pack, and the artisan's trembling hands stilled in her lap, both slipping into the deepest rest they had known in years. The scholar, however, remained rigid, his arms crossed. He had come to observe, not to be observed, and the idea of sharing his inner world with strangers felt like an intrusion. His resistance cast a subtle chill over the circle's warmth, a reminder that not all journeys are soothed by the same remedy. Ilara did not press him. Instead, she quietly placed a single, smooth stone, carved with the rune of stillness, into his hand, and guided him to a secluded corner of the meadow where he could practice a solo rune meditation, his privacy completely intact. This simple adaptation, this respect for his boundaries, was the key. Slowly, on his own terms, he began to participate, first by listening from the edge of the group, and then by joining in the carving lessons. By the end of their stay, the traveler dreamed of clear paths forward. The artisan sketched designs inspired by the dream library's glowing roots, and the scholar had not only slept through the night, but had begun a journal comparing runic patterns to ancient philosophical texts. Each guest left with a personalized rune stone and a new understanding of how to cultivate their own peace. Their departure was filled with grateful promises to share the news of this special place. Ilara watched them go, her heart swelling with a quiet pride at the lives they had touched. Yet that pride was tempered by a sharpening caution. Word would spread, and the next group of seekers might be larger, their needs even more diverse. The retreat's strength was its gentle adaptability, but that flexibility demanded constant, careful attention, a never-ending refinement of their craft to ensure the cozy magic could hold space for every heart that found its way to their door. The deep peace of the meadow seemed to ask for a piece of her own spirit with every passing day. Ilara's hands, once steady and sure over the carving stones, now held a faint, almost imperceptible tremor. After guiding a group of visitors through the activation of their personal runes, she retreated to the quiet of the workshop, her own energy feeling as thin and frayed as old thread. The cozy magic she had championed was a gentle flame, but she was the candle steadily burning down to sustain it. A cold knot of doubt tightened in her stomach, the fear that one morning she would reach for the well of her strength and find it utterly dry. She found Finn mending a basket by the creek, his movements calm and rhythmic. The words tumbled out, her confession a soft, weary rush. "I am afraid I cannot give any more," she whispered. The magic asks for so much, and I worry I will have nothing left for myself. Finn set his work aside, his gaze steady and understanding. He reminded her of the very first rune they had completed together in the sun-dappled clearing, the rune of listening. Its purpose was not to hoard the burden, but to share it. We brought this back to share comfort, he said gently, not to carry the weight of every troubled dream on your shoulders alone. That night, they did not teach or guide, they simply rested. Sitting together within the humming dream circle, they let its serene energy wash over them, not as masters of the magic, but as two people in need of its quiet gift. The circle gave back what it had taken, and for the first time in weeks, Ilara felt a genuine sense of replenishment, yet the core challenge remained. To truly share the burden meant to let go of a measure of control, to trust that the magic she had nurtured so carefully could thrive in other hands. It felt like handing a piece of her own heart to someone else for safekeeping. The decision, when she made it, was both difficult and necessary. She appointed 2 trusted villagers, a soft-spoken weaver named Anya, and the once skeptical scholar, Terran, as assistant Rune-Masters. She gave them responsibility for the daily care of the circle and the initial guidance of new guests. It was a monumental act of faith. Could Anya's quiet intuition and Terran's methodical precision truly harmonize with the lore she had built from intuition and dreams? The stakes of this new step were a different kind of test. For the practice to be sustainable, she had to lead without managing every carved line or interpreted symbol. She watched from a distance as Terran explained the rune of stillness to a visitor, using a complex analogy about river currents that was far different from her own simpler explanation. A flicker of anxiety rose in her chest. Was this a change, a subtle shift away from the magic's true essence? She had to consciously let go, trusting that the core principles they had established would guide their variations. The cozy magic was becoming a living language, and like any language, it would develop its own dialects. With her assistants capably managing the day's routines, Ilara found herself with an unexpected gift, an hour of unclaimed time. She walked without purpose into the familiar woods, following a path she had not taken in many months. The simple act of moving without a destination was a profound relief. Her footsteps led her to a towering, ancient oak she had always admired for its strength. Today, however, her rune-attuned eyes saw something new. There, on the weathered gray bark, was a pattern she had never seen in any text. It was not carved by any tool, but seemed to have grown from within the tree itself, a delicate tracery of lines that formed a symbol of deep, abiding resilience. Her fingers traced the pattern on the ancient oak, feeling the grooves worn not by any tool, but by centuries of growth. The symbol was a complex spiral, anchored by deep, vertical lines, a rune of deep roots, and as her palm rested against the bark, a wave of profound stability washed through her. It was a grounding energy far more potent than any rune she had ever carved, a calm so ancient and deep, it felt like the earth itself was breathing. This was not a magic made by masters, but one that had simply grown, a wisdom written into the world long before the first rune master ever lifted a stylus. The discovery reshaped her entire understanding of their craft. The cozy magic they practiced was not about imposing order, but about learning to listen to a harmony that was already there. She began to document these natural patterns with a reverent urgency, sketching the rune-shaped lichen on a river stone, and the way morning frost traced symbols of transient beauty on the windowpane. This new lore required no carving and no channeling of personal energy. It was a gift freely given, yet its very nature presented a dilemma. How could they integrate a force that was entirely beyond their control, a power that flowed with the seasons and answered only to the slow, patient rhythm of the world itself? A human carved rune could be adjusted, its energy refined and directed. The tree's rune simply was, immutable and wild. To build their practice upon it was to trust in a stability they could not command. Her decision was one of humility. She would not attempt to bring the tree's rune into the workshop or try to replicate its exact form on a smaller stone. Instead, she began to guide a few trusted guests on quiet walks to the ancient oak, teaching them to sit at its base and simply breathe, to open their hearts to the grounding energy it emanated. These visits became a form of meditation, a way to draw peace directly from the source. The tree, in turn, seemed to respond to their quiet reverence. Its energy began to weave seamlessly with the dream circle's magic, the deep, earthy hum of the roots, providing a stable foundation for the more ethereal comforts of the dream runes. The ancient oak quickly became a quiet pilgrimage site, a place where aspiring Rune-Masters learned that the first and most important lesson was not how to carve, but how to be still and listen. This integration deepened their connection to the environment in beautiful, unexpected ways, but it also meant their sanctuary's well-being was now tied to the health of the forest itself, relying on forces far greater than any human design. The full moon hung like a polished silver coin in the clear night sky, its light washing the meadow in a soft, liquid glow. Lila, Finn, and Master Kale stood with the assembled villagers in a wide circle that encompassed both the ancient oak and the humming dream stones. Tonight was different. They were not merely activating a circle, they were attempting a resonance, asking the deep, slow magic of the tree to sing in harmony with the gentle, woven magic of their runes. As the moon reached its highest point, Lila placed her hands on the oak bark, feeling the rune of deep roots pulse against her palm. Finn began a story, not of badgers or stars, but of the forest itself, of roots drinking from deep springs and leaves breathing in starlight. Master Kale, his voice a low, steady chant, traced the final activation sequences on the dream circle, and then it happened. A wave of pure, silent energy flowed from the ancient tree, meeting the rising hum of the circle. For a breathtaking moment, every rune in the meadow, every carved stone in every home, even the faint, natural patterns on leaves and stones, lit with the same serene, golden light. They were not separate points of comfort and amour, but a single, unified field of profound peace, a great harmony that settled over the village like a gentle, weightless blanket. That night, not a single soul stirred. Every person, from the youngest child to the most restless elder, experienced a sleep so deep and restorative, it felt like a reset for the spirit. By morning, the meadow was transformed, carpeted in wild rune flowers that had bloomed under the moonlight, their petals shimmering with the same golden light of the harmony. The air itself tasted sweeter, charged with a residual tranquility that made even the most mundane chores feel like peaceful rituals. Yet as Lila surveyed the beautiful, changed landscape, a thread of caution wove through her wonder. The The power they had channeled was immense, a tide that had answered their call perfectly. But could they truly guide such a force again without being overwhelmed by it? Could such a brilliant beacon of unified magic be noticed by other forces in the wider world, beings drawn not to peace, but to raw power? She gathered the village council that very afternoon, her proposal clear and measured. The great harmony was too potent to become a common practice. Instead, she suggested they make it an annual event, a carefully prepared for ceremony under the year's largest full moon. This would allow them to build the necessary safeguards, to ensure every participant was centered and ready, and to contain the magnificent energy so it remained a gift, not a risk. The council agreed, seeing the wisdom in her caution. This rare, celestial event would become the peak of their cozy calendar, a reminder of what was possible when their community and the magic were in perfect alignment. In the days that followed, the village glowed with the aftermath of that shared peace. Conversations were softer, laughter came more easily, and a collective sense of contentment seemed to radiate from the very cobblestones. For Alara, standing in her sunlit workshop and watching the new rune flowers sway in the breeze, a quiet realization settled over her. The frantic search, the secret fears, the struggle for acceptance, all of it had led here, to this sustained and gentle plateau. The cozy magic was no longer a discovery to be protected, but a living, breathing part of their world, its rhythm now as steady and reliable as the turning of the seasons. Sunlight pooled on the workshop table, illuminating the open pages of the lore of the Rune-Masters. Alara's pen moved with a steady rhythm, adding the final entries on natural runes and the great harmony. She paused, her fingers tracing the first shaky sketches she had made as an apprentice, when every rune felt like a secret and every mistake a catastrophe. That nervous girl seemed a lifetime away. Her confidence was no longer a fragile hope, but a deep-rooted certainty, built from countless carvings and the unwavering trust of her community. She knew with absolute clarity that new challenges would always emerge from the mists of the future, but the thought no longer carried the sharp sting of fear. A well-worn path had been laid, and she had learned how to walk it. Closing the book with a soft thud, she carried it not to her private shelf, but to the village archive. She placed it on a central pedestal and declared it a living document, a foundation for every villager to build upon with their own discoveries and insights. The lore was no longer her solitary burden, but a shared treasure, its future growth now ensured by the collective heart of the community. That evening, the fire crackled a warm accompaniment as she and Finn sat by the hearth. With no goal beyond the simple joy of creation, they picked up blank stones and their styluses. Their hands moved in a comfortable, silent synchrony, not to solve a problem or guide a dream, but to add another small, beautiful thread to the ever-growing tapestry of their peaceful world. The second great harmony began under a sky so clear it felt like a polished bowl of stars. Every villager held their personal rune stones, their faces turned toward the ancient oak and the glowing dream circle, ready to join their quiet energy to the whole. The familiar hum rose, a chord of profound peace that promised another night of perfect rest. But then the air changed. A cold wind, sharp and sudden, swept across the meadow, carrying with it a current of invisible, restless energy. It was not a weather storm, but a tempest of distant anxieties and fractured dreams, drawn like a moth to the brilliant beacon of their collective peace. This chaotic force met their harmonious field, threatening to break the calm into countless fragments of unease. The dream circle flickered, its gentle light straining against the onslaught. For a tense moment, the shared tranquility wavered, and the first murmurs of startled sleepers echoed in the night. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs, but her voice, when she called out, was remarkably steady. She did not command the villagers to fight the storm. She asked them to open their hearts wider. "Remember your purpose," she called over the rising dissonance. "We are not a wall, but a harbor." Finn's voice rose beside her, not in a story, but in a simple, rhythmic chant, a lullaby of grounding words that became a new anchor for their fraying magic. Across the circle, Master Kale and the assistant Rune-Masters moved with practiced precision, reinforcing the central runes while the rest of the community focused on their personal stones. A weaver poured her intent for sturdy cloth into her rune of stillness. A farmer channeled the patience of the soil into his stone. A parent held a memory comfort rune, focusing on the feeling of a child's safe sleep. One by one, then in a great, swelling wave, every carved rune in the village, from the grand circle to the smallest pebble in a pocket, began to glow with a unified, determined light. They did not repel the chaotic energy. Instead, they did what cozy magic does best. They welcomed it, they listened to its turmoil, and they began to gently soothe it. The community became a single, vast instrument of comfort, their synchronized will transforming the storm's sharp fear into a soft, mournful sigh, and then that sigh into a deep, resonant hum that spread out from the meadow like a lullaby over the entire region. The frantic energy settled, not vanishing, but being woven into the fabric of their peace, adding a new depth of resilience to it. When the last ripple of disturbance faded, the silence that remained was not empty, but full, a tranquility earned through shared effort. The great harmony had held, but it was now something more, a testament to what prepared hearts could accomplish together. They had not just preserved their peace, they had extended it, proving that even the world's restless sorrows could be met with a gentle, unwavering answer. The village of Oakhaven became a quiet legend, a name spoken with a sigh of relief along trade routes and in distant towns. It was not a place of grand sorcery, but of subtle, everyday enchantment, where the air itself seemed to hum with a gentle, restorative frequency. Under the great oak's boughs, Rune-Masters old and new worked in a seamless partnership. Master Kale, his stern demeanor finally softened by the fulfillment of a lifelong hope, now spent his days in the archive, cross-referencing Ilara's discoveries with the ancient, fragmented texts he had safeguarded for so long. His wisdom provided the historical roots, while the fresh insights of younger apprentices, like the once skeptical Terran, stretched the practice toward new horizons, exploring how runes of gentle winds could cool a fevered brow, or how memory comfort could ease the transition into sleep for the elderly. Ilara found her greatest fulfillment not in leading every endeavor, but in the quiet art of mentoring. She would often be found sitting with a small group in the meadow, her hands resting in her lap as she watched a new apprentice struggle with the curve of a rune. Her guidance was no longer a series of instructions, but a gentle nudge, a question that helped the carver find the answer within themselves. She had mastered rune craft, yes, but that mastery had evolved into something far more profound, the nurturing of the craft itself in others. The frantic energy of her early discoveries had settled into a deep, abiding contentment, a peace that came from seeing her original dream blossom into a legacy that no single person could ever contain. The lore of the Rune-Masters was never considered complete. It lived in the archive as a thick, ever-growing volume, its pages a testament to a living tradition. New chapters were added not only by Ilara and Finn, but by any villager who discovered a more effective way to weave a narrative into a carving, or who observed a new natural rune in the pattern of frost on a window pane. The book was filled with what could only be called cozy tales, short parables of comfort, and carefully detailed techniques for creating sleep ambience that could be replicated in any home, anywhere. These ideas of gentle magic spread like dandelion seeds on a soft breeze, carried by departing guests and traveling storytellers, bringing warmth and quiet rest far beyond the borders of their meadow. Ilara's journey had come full circle. The apprentice who once trembled over a single rune of warmth had become the architect of a sanctuary, her personal ambition transformed into a collective purpose. Her legacy was not a statue or a title, but the palpable peace that filled the village square at dusk, the soft glow from 100 windows where families practiced their own small rituals of comfort, and the knowledge that the gentle art of the dream weavers was now a perpetual gift, a wellspring of solace for all who sought a quieter, kinder world.